Hello. Today I'm with Jeremy Crowther and his superb Lea-Francis from 1925. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, Danny.
Hello. Right. What we'd like to know is anything. What was the inspiration to get in the car?
Right, okay. So the car was owned by my dad from 1960 until he died in 98, and my mum then sold it in 2000 to my old boss, actually. So my dad bought the car from the widow of the first owner, and it actually worked on it as an apprentice mechanic. And so he had a lot of association with the car, and obviously as kids, me and my sister used to go about in it all over. So anyway, unfortunately the car was sold. I then spotted it on Car Classics, and it was in Belgium at the time. Phoned the guy. It had unfortunately been sold, but then a couple of weeks later he phoned me back to say that the sale had fallen through and would have liked to buy it. Which we did, and then we took me and my wife and son took a busman's holiday over to Belgium to go and pick it up, and that was in 2014.
Super duper. And how long did it take you to restore it to its present condition?
Right, so the car actually has never had a body off restoration. So in effect, the first owner ran it. He ran it because it was the only car that he could drive because he was injured in the First World War. And the only recorded work that we've got of anything being done to it is a rebuild by my dad, who was a mechanic and part of the Lookers group. Was a rebuild which was probably about 1965. And then it was really a running restoration. So, over the years it's had gearboxes rebuilt, back axles done, but no significant work apart from the rebuild to the engine. So in 2015, 2016, I took it on a thing called the Beamish Run, which is from Beamish, and it goes up to Lake Districts and around. And to be honest, the engine by that time, it had it. It was shot.
Right.
And so I then took it off the road and started to rebuild the engine. Actually, that was in 2018, so it wasn't 2016, 2018. And then lockdown happened in 2019. So the engine was taken out, it was rebuilt, new white metaling, new pistons, a couple of new conrods. We had the cylinder head overhauled. Basically anything mechanically that it needed doing. The gearbox was rebuilt twice by a specialist, and then a third time by me because it didn't work out at the specialist. We then also rebuilt the back axle, and it's got P-type differentials in, which is another type of car. And at the same time, because it was lockdown, decided to take it back to its original colour, which is Sax Blue. Couldn't find anybody who would respray it in cellulose, which is what we wanted to do. So I taught myself spraying, and with a mate of mine, we resprayed it as well. So in effect, the car's never had a full restoration. It's always been a running resto, but it pretty much wins. I'm not a big fan of judging, etc., but a lot of shows these days it would be the public who decide, and it must admit it comes out either first or second at most of the shows. But I drive it a lot.
Yeah, and you're not bothered either way, whether it wins or not.
No, it's my car, and everybody's car's special to them in one way, shape or another. So it's my car. I love it. It's the nicest car that I've got. It's the number one in terms of drivability because I just love driving it. But it is, as a vintage car goes, it's totally original.
Yeah.
Buying some of the mechanicals, it's totally original. It's always been garaged. It's always been well kept all of its life, and we have a history going back to 1925 when it was first built.
Super duper. Is there any interesting or funny things that happened while you were doing your rolling restoration?
No, not really. I think the main thing is finding people to help, specialists, so you
Yeah.
can't white metal yourself. Um, and slowly over the last few years, I've built up I won't say it's a network, but I've built up contacts who can make me bits and pieces if I need it. So I've got a great clockmaker guy who's brilliant at just turning his hand to little bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So no, there's been no issues apart from the fact that you can't buy spare parts for it.
No.
You have to get them made. So you can't nip down to Halfords or
Oh
to
God, no.
MG Hive or whatever and go and pick up the bit.
No.
Which is the beauty of it as well, because
Yes.
it's a challenge to keep it on the road.
Yep. And how many of these still exist apart from yours?
So there were 333 built. So Lea-Francis cars themselves from the early 20s to 1950, let's call it mid 50s, early 60s, built 10,000 cars, and that was it. There's 333 of this type was built, of which now I think there's 4 or 5 left, and this one is the oldest. Right. So it was launched in 1925, and I think this is probably 3rd or 4th chassis that they produce.
Yeah.
So yeah, 4 or 5 left.
Could you give us a history of the vehicle?
I can indeed.
Much appreciated.
Right, so the car was built on the 24th of October 1925 and is actually date stamped. It was sold to a Lieutenant Levitt who lived in Scarborough, and Lieutenant Levitt had a gammy leg which we think was from World War One, and it was the only car that he could drive because getting into it has a flat floor, so you can actually climb across. There's no gearbox tunnel. Gearbox is to the right hand side, so you can get straight into it. He drove the car up until 1956. So 1925 to 1956. By the mid 30s, most of these things were being scrapped. They'd had it. They'd rotted away, etc. Particularly living by the sea. My dad knew of the car because he was an apprentice mechanic and used to actually service the car. So when Lieutenant Levitt died, my dad then tried to buy it from his widow. And the interesting thing is that when my dad finally managed to buy it took him 4 years, is that when Lieutenant Levitt died, that night he actually drove the car into the garage. He died of a heart attack. And when my dad picked the car up and towed it back to Bridlington, so Scarborough to Bridlington, the mileage is stuck, and it still is to this day at 45,007. And that's the mileage that the car was parked the night that he died. From 1960, when Dad got the car, he then kept it up until he died, which was in 1998. My mum sold it in 2000. I bought it back in 2014. So in essence, the car really, the first owner had it for how many years would that be? 30 odd years. We've had it in the family for 40, 50, almost 60 years. And in those intervening years, which is about 13 years, it's had another 2 owners. So in essence, it's really a sort of one owner, one family owned, and a couple of dealers type car. So we have paperwork going back to 1925. We have invoices going back to 1925. I've got a wodge of invoices that for my dad. Honestly, it's like that from the 60s onwards. We have invoices for some camp followers from the 30s. It's absolutely complete, so you can chase it all the way back.
It's nice to have all those records because it adds to the car, doesn't it?
It does. It adds to the car, and it's the fact that a lot of vintage cars, they'll be advertised, history not known, etc. Which they're not. This is one of the very, very rare cars where we know the original owner, we know where he lived, we know where it was garage, we know who's worked on it, we know about my dad's involvement, we know about my involvement, we know about other owners. So it's unique, and I think a lot of people, when you tell them about the mileage, it's a bit eerie, really, isn't it? 45007.
And then,
yeah, speedo works, but the mileometer's stuck. And that's the history of the car.
yeah, thank you very much. I think we'll call it a day at that.
Yep, okay, all right.